Doing?
Hi, how are you? Good evening.
Welcome.
We're good. We're good. Welcome. Yeah. So we're just letting people trickle in for the first 5 minutes or so, but we figured we let you in and get to know you a little bit more. So I'm DeAndre. This is Sarah. You'll hear more about us here in a second. But what's going on with you? Getting ready for the July bar exam?
Awesome. Actually, I am. I'm currently taking bar fundamentals at the moment. So,
Mhm.
it's pretty exciting stuff.
What's bar fundamentals? I haven't heard that before.
It's just, I guess, the title of our class. It's for exam essay preparation.
Okay. So
We took the I took the MBE portion last semester, and now I'm just focused on the actual essay portion now.
so a school offered class.
Yes. Uh-huh. I
Awesome.
currently attend Thomas Jefferson School of Law, so
Okay. San
yeah.
Diego.
Yes.
How's the weather down there?
Always nice. It was a nice day today. A little chilly because of the water. We're near the water, but it was really, really nice.
Good.
Can't complain.
So, what's your, anxiety levels regarding the bar exam at the current moment, and from a scale
Um,
of 0 to 10?
what- oh, okay. I was gonna say, what's the Richter scale?
Yeah.
I would say definitely a 10. One being because I am first generation, so this is like a new uncharted journey for me, and I'm, trying to figure things out on my own. Um, so definitely really nervous, but you know, if God saw me through all this way, I know I can get through the bars. So
There we go. And look, I mean, you're not going to be the first nor the last first gen person to pass. And so, the good thing is that, like, you find places like this, you find the right circle, the right resources that are going to help you get you through that. And, for whatever it's worth, I was a first generation college and law student as well. I passed my first time, and I'm gonna be giving you a little bit of my tips and tricks and secrets for you to do the same. Um,
awesome. Thank you. I'm
Definitely
excited to hear what you have today. So I
awesome.
appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing about, what we're doing, what BWL and Langston are committed to, which is the success, of our members, of our people. So, super happy to be here to, pass along, even with the very little. It's just the motivation and just to show you guys you can do it. But again, we're going to definitely get into some like tangible things you can take as well. So
Awesome. I'm excited. Thank you.
there we go. Okay. And I see we got some people starting to trickle in. Let's get a know maybe somebody else. We got a Courtney. You there with us, Courtney?
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Well, well. So we're just doing a little chit chat before we officially get started. So what's your situation? Are you still in school? Are you graduated? We're guessing that you are taking the July 2023 exam. Give us a little info.
I'm still in school. I'm a third year at Detroit Mercy, and I am planning on taking the July 2023 bar exam.
Awesome. Are you taking California or are you taking UBE?
Michigan, so UBE.
Nice. Awesome. All right, cool. And then what about you, Mr. William Jones? Oh, Mr. William Jones. Calling once.
Are you there, William? Are you muted?
All right, and then we can go to
I
Meta.
stepped away.
Yeah. Are you with us, Meta? Is your mic working?
Yeah, hi.
How's it going?
Good. I'm from University of Washington, planning to take the California bar exam this July.
Say that one more time.
Planning to take the California bar exam this July.
Got it. Awesome. And so where are you at right now with your just overall comfort level, anxiety levels? Kind of like, yeah, tell me a little bit of what you're, yeah, ready for, excited, nervous about the bar exam.
None of that. Very scared. Haven't really started preparing anything, so just happy to be here.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I say we go ahead and get started. We still might have some more people trickling in. It's like the after work hours. Ooh, let me go ahead and mute my notifications.
Yeah, a lot of times we have people kind of trickle in as things go on and they get home from work. And I just wanted to say a quick hello to everybody who is already here. And thank you all so much for making the time to come to part one of this session. DeAndre and Legally Fit are an amazing team, and he is going to get you prepped for the bar. And this is just the first session. So we hope that you'll stay tuned and be able to join us for part two and part three coming up this spring. And we're definitely wishing you all best wishes on studying for the bar and on finishing up, if you're still in school, your semester. I'm Sarah Clifton. I am one of the co-chairs of the Black Women Lawyers of Los Angeles Education Committee. So thank you again, and I will turn it on over to DeAndre. So I don't want to take up any time of all this good stuff.
Awesome. And yeah, before we get started, we need to give a big shout out to BWL and Langston for putting on this event and inviting me to present. Again, it's just an awesome commitment that they're showing to the community of putting this on to help usher in the next wave of attorneys, to ease the anxiety levels, to increase the enjoyment and the preparation for this exam. So yeah, wouldn't be here without them. So we all want to give them a big thank you. So thank you, Sarah. All right. And then one other request, again, you guys might not be used to my style. I don't see any familiar faces in here, but with Legally Fit, if you can, we would love if you could turn your cameras on. We try to keep, as you can already tell, as engaging of kind of a back and forth as possible. If you weren't prepared for it, I get it, but it definitely makes the session nice and go well for me and for you guys if we can just kind of see each other. So feel free to turn your cameras on if you can. All right. So with this session, right, we've created this 3-part series to get you ready for the bar exam. And this first session is themed start early to finish strong. So as you guys all know, we're in January, almost over already. Crazy how fast the new year is going. And this is all about just what to do, how to do it, and start getting that conversation going. Just based off of some of the things that I'm hearing already, I just want you guys all to know that, it's very normal to feel a little nervous, to feel a little anxious about this exam. But what you want to do is take the necessary steps like you are today. And we'll talk about the other things that you can be doing and feel very comfortable in that to start letting that subside. And, I want to start by sharing with you guys that I had an amazing bar prep experience. Now, don't get me wrong. It was probably one of the hardest things that I've done. But if you are guided well, if you are coached well, if you know and you have a plan of what to do and you stay disciplined to it, it's a great experience where you learn a lot about yourself, about your boundaries and limitations and how far you can push yourself to achieve a goal. So definitely get ready for some hard work, but it can be a very, very rewarding experience. To this day, it's one of my biggest accomplishments. And I look back on that process of studying and, I impressed myself and I use that to push myself in my career, my day to day. So I want you guys to kind of start to build a little bit of that excitement and, balance that with the nerves as well. So with that said, we have a presentation in store. At any point, if there's questions, feel free to use the raise your hand feature through Zoom and I'll call on you guys. Again, I want this to be engaging. So be prepared to kind of, pull off of, the mute so I can, hear you and get your answers. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our presentation. And by the way, we're going to actually not just do some talking. We actually have an essay workshop, planned for the later half of this session. So looking forward to that. We're actually going to do a little work today to get you prepared for it as well, not just talk about it. So let me pull up the PDF. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we're starting off with lifestyle tips to prepare for the bar. So literally starting off from like not even talking about actual bar material or how to study, but literally how to set your life up. And these are going to be some of the like secrets, tips and tricks that really can make the big difference in your bar prep journey, right? It's just like anything else that's in life, right? When you got ready for law school, you had to adjust your lifestyle for that first year of law school. Your social life had to change, your relationships changed, all those different things. So these are some of the things I want you to start thinking about now that there's still time to get ready for July. So what we're going to do is I have 3 pages here. Each page has a various amount of tips that I have for you. And I'm going to call on somebody and you're going to tell me which tip speaks the loudest to you. And then we'll chit chat about that one briefly and then move on to the next page. So let's go ahead and start with Stephanie. Stephanie, on this first page, there's only 2 here. Which of these tips speak loudest to you?
I can only pick one.
Yep, you can only pick, look, because all the tips are probably going to be good, but yeah, we'll do, for time's sake, speak, which one speaks the loudest.
I would say definitely prepare your relationships.
All right. Yep, that's a good one. So let's talk about that one briefly. And then, again, we'll take any comments or even questions you may have on, how you can best do that, or, anything you want to share. So on the prepare your relationship side, essentially the advice is, we know how demanding studying in law school can be, right? We probably have already seen the effect on some of our relationships, especially for those that have very demanding romantic relationships, very demanding family relationships, or friendships, right? It could range on whatever anybody's social plate is. And, what we naturally see for the bar exam is that it's even more demanding than law school. It's like going through finals for 2.5 months. And so a lot of the people around you, especially as they've seen the transition, they might be used to now what 3L version of you is and 2L version. And it's going to look a lot different during this time frame. And so the more you can prepare those people early for that, the less likely you are to kind of be met with any resistance during studying, because you just don't want to see that. We've seen students not prepare their relationships and go through relationship breakups during bar prep, right? Go through family fights, of not showing up to certain holidays and birthdays and things like that. So again, small conversations that may be difficult, but that can go a long way in your bar prep success, because you want that 2.5 months to just be as distraction free, as toxic free as possible. And again, on your part, start early and don't just expect the people around you to get it. Help them understand before it starts. So is that pretty clear? Do you have any questions on that one, Stephanie, or no, that sounds good?
No, I just think it speaks volumes to even my situation, because I'm really close with my family, and that's definitely something I had a talk with them regarding even law school. So having to study for 3 months with no distractions and making sure they know that I can't have any is a tough one, but they just have to understand.
They do, yeah. And then, and like at the very least, right? Because we all have various families, and whether they listen is another thing, and that's just to some extent outside of our control. And then we have to make sure we put up our boundaries in whatever way that looks like. But you have to at least do your part, and this at least from your perspective can set you up for success. And I would even say attempt to go a step further, and I encourage everybody to do that. So not just prepare them for what your availability will look like, but also if anybody in your family is interested, of like, hey, here's how I could even use a little bit of assistance during this time. Like on Sundays, maybe it'd be nice to maybe come together for a dinner, because I'll be like locked away mostly throughout the week. And it'd be nice to have a little bit of, very intentional time together to take my mind off of studying, or maybe I can use some help with meal prepping and things like that. So it's even a good time to dream and think about how your social circle, your family, friends, etc., can assist in this time frame, and pitch those ideas. And worst case scenario is they say no, but yeah, that's one way to even take it a step further. Awesome. All right, so let's go to the next page. Let's go with Courtney on this one. So you got even more options to choose from on this page. Maybe we'll take 2 here, but let's start off with like, which one speaks the loudest to you on this page?
Sleep.
Sleep.
I think I'll probably be too worried about studying or not studying enough and lose sleep about it. So.
And let me ask you, what are your sleep habits right now, if you don't mind sharing? Are you getting that 8 hours of sleep right now?
Yeah, right now I am, because I have a lighter course load this semester. So
Good.
I have a couple papers due later on, but I should be able to manage that. So.
Awesome. Well, that's really good to hear. And it's always easiest to keep the habit than starting it during the stressful time. So it's good that you're starting off with that. And for anybody who's not already getting 8 hours of sleep, right? Start to work towards that direction. So again, you can have that habit built. Now, to your point, Courtney, of during the exam, it may be harder to sleep because of all the thoughts, right? And the nerves that are making you feel like you can just go more and more. Let me plant the seed now of what you want to be the combating thought, which is this is a marathon, right? You're studying intensely for 2.5 months. And sleep is a big part of that, as well as your diet and exercise. All right. And so all three of those work together to make sure you can actually last through that. And you just have to remember, right, just some of the basic logic there that if I pull a 24-hour type of study night, or I, end up with only getting 4 hours of sleep, it's like the next day is not going to be as productive. Like just literally it cannot be. And so it's a matter of just like get comfortable now that with bar prep, unfortunately, the way that it's built is that it's so much information, it's never going to feel like it's enough time. And you just kind of have to accept that, and that's just part of the process. So you don't then interpret that as you're actually are behind. This is just like, this is normal. So I think the more you do that and the more you just put sleep as a priority, then the more you can just kind of let go of some of those other competing thoughts that are, trying to get you to stay up longer. And just for whatever it's worth, I'll share my story on how I studied. I was pretty aggressive. I wanted to make sure that I passed the first time. Didn't want to leave anything to chance. And I had a pretty much, consistent 9 a.m. I would wake up at 8 and then be ready to study by 9, and then go from about 9 a.m. to about anywhere from 8 to like 10 p.m. Sometimes I'd end earlier, maybe like 7 or 6, depending on if it was a good day and maybe it was a subject I was comfortable with. But they were pretty long days and they go by fast. I'll tell you, you'll start to feel like the days just like fly by, literally. But all that to say, I would, finish up. I would go home. I'd have my like unwind routine. I'd go on a walk in my neighborhood to just relax, or maybe go on a night run. And then I'd be asleep by 12 and then back up by 8. Bar preps have become a little bit more efficient, especially my program, Legally Fit. We've tried to find different ways to save you a little time. So you might not have to have the exact experience that I did back in 2014. But with all that said, that gives you, again, a rough schedule. All right. And then let's go to then the last page. And here we are. And so Meta, on this page, is there any particular one that stands out the most to you? It looked like Meta might have been moving around when we first met with her. Maybe she,
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Let's see. From this one, I guess maybe study location. Sometimes I get pretty lazy about actually going to the library or finding a location that works permanently. So just making sure I have a go-to spot.
Yes. And so, yeah, this is a super important one, and don't want to underestimate, again, the importance of these little things, right? It's almost like, from the perspective of like, imagine when you don't have like a regimen with your diet or your meal prep, right? And you're just like every day trying to figure out like, what am I going to eat? And that could take you hours, right? Of just like back of your mind thought. And then like, even in the moment, you're looking up, should I Postmates this? Should I drive here? And again, you're just losing time in that sense. Well, it's kind of the same thing with study location, but not only would you possibly be losing time by just kind of like, background thoughts, but you'll also maybe not be in the most effective environment where you're getting the most bang for your buck in your study time. So if you're studying in a spot, for the first 3 weeks that tends to like distract you, you want to avoid that if you can. So right now is a good time to start figuring out, all right, I'm going to be in this location, and it could be more than one location. You could switch it up. I know for me, I like to study somewhere else over the weekend just to kind of feel like I was breaking up the monotony. But feel free to have 1 to 3 locations for whatever works best for you. I typically like to avoid studying from home because it's just like all of a sudden, we're hungrier more often. We want to go into the fridge. All of a sudden our bladders are smaller, and we go to the bathroom way more often than we need to, right? All these kind of things that are so accessible in that comfort zone. So I highly recommend studying outside, but again, start to just like figure that out. Maybe there's an office you want to, work out of. I know some people who have rented office space or even rented an Airbnb during bar prep and just have like a now a new location where there's not any type of familiarity with that space. So again, to each his own, figure out what works best for you, but give it some thought now. So it's not day one of bar prep and you're like, oh, where actually am I going to study? Okay, so those are my lifestyle tips. Again, as I mentioned, there are more there. I'm going to send a PDF to all of you guys at the end of this. So feel free to read up on the other ones that I shared. I think they're all super important. All right, so now let's get into start early to finish strong. So talking a little bit more about the actual early prep that you guys can do. So the first thing we have here are reasons to start early. The first one is make bar prep manageable. Quick message here, most students feel like that 2.5 months that starts in May to July is not enough time. So take some of those hours and put them into this January to April timeframe, and then all of a sudden, that bar prep in May just feels a lot easier and more manageable to get through. Next, increase individual awareness. Now, when it comes to bar prep companies, there are big box companies that typically provide very cookie cutter programs. There are private tutors that have super tailored to you type of journeys and experiences. And then there's like companies like myself that aim to be a hybrid, right? No matter which one you fall into or you find yourself taking for July, it is your responsibility to either find a company that will help or do it within a big box company of knowing what you need to work on, because all students are going to be situated differently and what their strengths and weaknesses are in the law and the skill. And you have to tweak your bar prep to your weaknesses in order to perform well. So what you can do is use this early prep time to actually start identifying those, and then in theory start working on those as well. But at least step one would be identifying those, so then you know how you need to tweak your experience in May. The third reason to start early is reduce anxiety. So one of the trending themes already in talking to a few of you was that anxiety levels are already high for this exam, and so that needs to be a daily practice to kind of lower that. And part of it is, again, just being strong mentally to have competing thoughts of like, hey, I am going to pass this. Hey, I am going to take the necessary steps both now and once bar prep starts to make sure I pass, and feel comfortable that you are doing that, and then just kind of leave it from there. So we kind of have to adopt this mentality that I'm going to work as hard as I can in a way that makes sense. And then from there, I did the best that I can, and I can rest my hat on that and feel good about that, because that's all we can do. So reduce anxiety. Now, that's the reasons to start early. Next, what to accomplish during your early start. So refresh your knowledge of the law, right? So whether you never really learned the class to begin with because you didn't really connect with your professor, or you didn't know it well, but it was just like you learned that 3 or 2 years ago, you want to start getting back into the classes and getting a gist for what's going on there. So that way, again, it's not just overload of just newness come May. You want to develop your test taking skills. So the portions of the bar exam, Stephanie, are we already aware of what the 3 portions of the bar exam are?
I know there's the essay portion, the MBE portion, and MPT. Is that what you're talking about?
And the PT, yeah. MPT, if you're taking the UBE, for California, they just call it the PT.
Yeah, PT.
Exactly. Yep. So you have those 3 portions, and that applies the same for the UBE as well. And so there's test taking skills that you have to learn and develop for each of those, right? For the MBE, for the essay, and for the PT. And let me tell you, bar essay writing can be a little bit different, not even a little bit, can be different than law exam writing, right? Depending on your professor and how much they formatted their essays to mirror the bar exam. So just because you did strong in the essays in law school, that's a good correlation to doing well on the essays here, but do realize it is different. And then MBEs, that pretty much carries over. If you were good at MBEs before, you're likely good at MBEs here. You want to kind of bring along the same skills you had before. But obviously, again, doing bar practice questions as opposed to teacher-specific ones, you want to see how you do with those. And then the PT is a beast in of its own. So you want to develop your test-taking skills. And then the third is familiarize yourself with bar exam study strategy. So coming from somebody like myself, I didn't do anything for an early start. Schools weren't offering early start classes, even the way that they are now. So for me, it was like when I started in May, studying for the bar was a whole new concept. And so what you just want to do is, if you can, get familiar with just what that looks like and the proper ways to study. Now, we're going to actually talk about that today regarding the essay, but there's, how to do the MBE, how to study for the PT, etc., that you want to familiarize yourself with. All right. And then lastly, how to start early. So you've got 3 options. I've heard one of those a little bit already. So you can start early with the bar prep company. You can take a school offered early bar prep class, or you can self-study with some materials that you trust. The best option for you depends on the resources available to you, your budget, and how much time you have available for early study. So here are some of my tidbits on that and what I would personally recommend. One, I think obviously it's a no-brainer to enroll in a school offered early prep class if they have it. Now, when it comes to these classes, the effectiveness of them varies from campus to campus. What I've seen be kind of what I would call the pitfalls or the inefficiencies of some of these programs is that, one, they don't have somebody who is really well versed in the bar teaching the course. They'll have a professor that they assign to this class once they decided they wanted to teach it. And so that person kind of goes through it, but they're not necessarily a bar professional. So you just may find yourself not getting some of the actual nitty gritty of what you may need. The other issue sometimes that I've seen with the school offered prep class, but this also carries over to some of the early starts with the prep company, is that in that list of what I mentioned of what to accomplish early, sometimes those early prep classes only focus on developing your test taking skills. And so they'll just throw you into the fire with doing practice essays, doing practice MBEs. But then what I've seen in my experience is that in order to do well on those different components, you actually have to have a refreshed understanding of the law. And so you want to make sure whatever you're doing incorporates that, or you find something to supplement what you're doing. Because again, 50% of doing well on the essay, 50% of doing well on the MBE requires you to know the law. And in my belief, it kind of builds bad momentum if you're just going straight into practice questions, because you're going to get those wrong more often than right. And then it just kind of creates this oh, I'm not getting this right. I'm not getting this right. It's almost like going to the gym consistently and not seeing any results. It just makes it harder to continue to do that for such a long period, as opposed to getting the small wins in the gym, right? Every time. And it's oh yeah, I want to come back here and keep doing this. And I think refreshing your knowledge of the law while developing your test taking skills is the ideal way to go. With that said, does anybody have any questions on anything here, or does anybody want to kind of spitball what they're doing regarding their options, and I can answer any of those questions? Thanks, Stephanie. I got got your message. Okay, so if there's no questions, we will keep
Actually, I'm sorry, DeAndre, I'm sorry. I did have a question. So I know that a lot of students discuss which bar prep courses are best. Do you have any recommendations on that? Because I know my school, they do Barbary.
Yes.
And our focus is Barbary. So, and I also have a few students who are doing Kaplan and Bemis.
Yeah.
But I mean, does it really make a difference, or
So
it's a hard type of situation for me, because I'm I don't know. They're all great. I have no idea. So
absolutely, yeah. So I'll first start off by saying I am biased, and I would say that Legally Fit's program is the best one out there. But in all honesty, here's my again, transparent, honest opinion is that you can pass right with any of those programs. All of these programs have the materials to get you through. What you want to do is not be pushed into any particular program, which is like typically the experience for the law student. They do with what their school is telling them or what everybody else around them is doing, but you're kind of going into it blindly. So I'm always the biggest proponent that like you need to feel out, right, which program you kind of vibe with the most. And some of the things that vary the most that you're looking for are like, right, what are the options within that program to kind of customize it to myself? How isolating will it be taking that program, right? As far as like, am I going to have any live interaction with anybody? Is there going to be anybody to ask questions? And how important is that to you? And so typically the big box course, the Barbary Kaplan Themis experiences can be very isolating. But for some students, that's not a problem at all. Give me my materials, I'll sit down and I study, and that's it. Right. But if you want something that's more supporting, you look for a program like mine, or you look for a private tutor to kind of like have that to supplement it. And I would say the other one that's probably also like a top thing to look out for is which videos do you resonate the most with, and which ones help explain the law in the best kind of style for you to understand them. And so, there's students where it's just like, oh, I don't really love the Barbary lectures, or I don't really like the Themis lecture, or I don't really like it, right? Whatever it may be. So I think the best thing you can do is have conversations with representatives from the orgs, figure out for yourself what kind of like is most important to you. And then you get to make an informed decision and avoid pretty much what you're saying of just like, well, they all sound good and they're all options, but I don't really know which one. I think once you make that list and you get a few of those questions answered, you'll be able to easily see like, all right, I think this is a good one for me to go with.
Thank you. That was really great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. And again, like just overall with everything that we're doing with bar prep, like hopefully you see a trend here that you can like reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress with all of this by just like taking small, consistent steps, right? That are just make sense and logical. Like, I don't know what program to take. Well, let me do some research and figure out which one is good. Like I'm feeling a little anxious for the bar. All right, let me start studying early so I can make sure I'm prepared, right? So let's keep that trend going. And that again can help us lower these anxiety levels. All righty. So moving on to the next portion, that was pretty much it as far as like what I wanted to do, kind of talking about getting started early. From there, I wanted to actually get into giving you guys some tools that can help you with your early start. And so I wanted to go through a past bar essay and kind of show you guys how I like to study from exams, how I like to use sample answers, not to test myself, but rather to learn. So that's going to be the next portion of this. I did see that some of us may have a class coming up in a little bit if some of us are in evening classes. So yeah, the way that the rest of the structure is going to work is that we are going to read this exam for about 15 minutes. You guys are going to issue spot it. And then from there, we're going to start working through it. If you do have to leave, this will be recorded and we'll give you guys instructions on how to access the rest of this. And also some other, information. I'll be providing all of these slides to you, so you can also just go through it on your own. And there's that. All right. So from there, let's go ahead and jump into doing this bar exam. So what we're going to do, only part that you have to do on your own is to read, brief, and outline this exam. And so I want you to, on your computer, do an outline and catch as many issues as possible that you can. All right. Thanks, Meta. So everybody go ahead at 7:05. So we'll do that till 7:20. Go ahead and read, issue spot, and outline as many things as you can catch for this exam.
after we click on the link, could you say where are we? Because I'm getting the menu. Is it the essay? No, I can't. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, let me click on it with you. There should be, as soon as you click on it, it says Road to Esquire Part 1 sign in, like as the first like big.
Okay, I just gotta sign in. Yep.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, still having trouble.
Say that again.
I'm still having trouble. So I logged in and then it just said my attendance is recorded.
You're who?
My attendance.
Yeah, that's the message you receive after you sign in that you are here. It just says your attendance is recorded.
So it sounds like
Okay.
you signed in successfully.
Yes.
I think I might have missed the instructions. Are we reading just what's on here?
So the instructions were on the share screen. You should see the July 2012 bar exam. Peter responded to an advertisement.
Yeah, is that what I'm supposed to read? I thought I was supposed to go on the website and find something to read.
Oh no, that was, it was just, if you please sign in to the session if you just joined us.
Thank you so much. That totally makes sense. Thank you.
Clears it up. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and read the on-screen stuff.
All right, thanks.
Cool. This is a pretty short fact pattern, so we'll just do 5 more minutes of reading this. And again, if you've already read through it, you're on your computer now to the best of your ability, right? Whoever is on the computer, I know Meta, you're on the go, but if you're on your computer in an empty Word document, try to just put, what your order of operation in your discussion would be. All right, so your outline for your discussion. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Courtney, were you able to read through that entire essay?
Yes.
All right. So my first question is for you. My question for you is, what do you think is the most important skill, all right, that is required of you on every component of the bar exam? That's the essay, the multiple choice, and the PT. What skill is the most important one that's going to be required in all three of those?
Issue spotting.
It's not actually going to be issue spotting. That is an important one. It's actually going to be reading comprehension. All right, this is one of those silent killers. It's not something that you're going to hear as being the main thing that a lot of, other programs talk about, but it's something that I focus on a lot because if you don't understand what's going on with the fact pattern, you cannot correctly analyze the fact pattern. All right, so reading comprehension is key. And to start us off with this essay workshop, we're going to go through and see how our reading comprehension was. So my first question for you, Courtney, is who is the employer in this fact pattern?
The employer was the dentist.
All right, the dentist. Do you remember the name by chance?
I can't remember her name.
Okay, so Della is the employer. And then what is Della looking to hire?
A dental hygienist.
A dental hygienist. Awesome. What were the two compensation packages options that were initially offered by Della?
$50,000 for a year as salary, or $40,000 per year, and her conveying her parcel of land that was worth $50,000 to him if he worked for 3 years.
Awesome. Amazing job here, right? Very details, exactly all that I'm looking for. Good. What about Stephanie? Stephanie, were you able to read the fact pattern?
Yes, but I think I would be cheating because we actually went over this fact pattern in class.
Awesome. Well, let's see if you still
Yeah.
comprehend the facts. So, what was the issue? Excuse me, what did Peter want the terms of the agreement to be?
Well, he wanted to actually have this. It was a counter offer, really, but he wanted option two. So the parcel of land plus the 40,000 for 3 years, and an additional 3 years added to that.
Perfect. So you want an additional 3 years. Awesome. Next, what was the issue with the signed letter by Della?
That it didn't include the parcel of land, and I know that a parcel of land you need a writing, so
Was
it
there
has.
any other term that
Oh,
wasn't included in the writing? So you're right there, but it was something else as well.
I know that the 40,000 was, but the additional 3 years wasn't
Yeah.
included. Also,
It didn't have mention of any duration of employment, right? And then no land.
right.
Next, how long did Peter work for Della before being fired?
I believe it was like 2 years and 9 months.
All right, good. Meta, were you able to read it? Okay, we'll come back to Meta. So back to, oh,
I was able to read it. What was gonna be your question?
okay. How did Della act in bad faith in this fact pattern?
Oh, okay. She went back on her promise.
In what way? So
Uh,
detail.
okay, in detail. So, well, she had offered him the parcel, and one that was not included in the actual agreement that she provided him.
Mhm.
And then she also fired him, I believe, without cause earlier than the 3 year
Good.
term. You know,
So yeah, the way that I would summarize that, but right now we're getting to the meat of it, is that right there was an agreement to work for Della for either 3 or 6 years, which at least at the end of the 3 years he'd be getting a parcel of land. that stuff wasn't in the writing. That's one issue. But on top of that, she seemingly fired him. Not seemingly, she actually fired him right before the 3-year mark. And she seemingly did that to avoid any possibility that he would end up getting the house. And again, there was essentially a firing of for no cause there. And it mentioned that, she was always happy with his work. So the bad faith is that like she's trying through all means to avoid passing along this house as she promised. Good. And so these are the type of things that, right, we want to all just kind of capture of the story, right, before we actually start analyzing. And this stuff actually assists with issue spotting and other things like that. So really good job overall on your reading comprehension team. But again, this is maybe an easier fact pattern for us. Maybe everybody here, likes the contract setup a little bit more. In other situations for con law, BA, right, it could be more of a dense fact pattern that you have to take your time and make sure you understand all of what's going on. Now, the next thing that I do after I make sure I have a good understanding of the facts, I always ask myself this before I get into writing. And that's, why are the parties upset and what do they want? This is an opportunity to humanize the fact pattern, to like get out of your head that this is the bar exam and kind of treat this as if it was like a client walking into your office. All right. And so you're asking yourself, why are the parties upset and what do they want? So Stephanie, put into your own words, concisely as possible, and summarize for Peter why Peter, the plaintiff, is upset and what would he want.
I would say Peter is upset because, am I actually talking to the client or am I just saying this?
No, this is just for yourself in your head to figure out
okay.
What are the focal points of this case, of this situation. You're like, right, to start you off, is like Peter's upset because he entered into this employment contract with Della and
right, he entered into this employment contract with Della, relying on the fact that he thought he was going to be working for her up to at least the 3 years that she had originally offered. But unfortunately, she breached the contract by firing him, as well as not conveying the parcel of land that she had also promised in the original contract.
Good. So what would be the focal point of maybe his potential remedies? Is like either receiving this or getting damages for this. What would be the two things that he's really missing out on?
I believe expectation of damages. I know that
But for not the type of remedies, but for what specifically? Like what was it that he didn't get?
Oh, monetary. So pecuniary damages, is that?
So you're still getting into law. What I want you to articulate is that he's looking for damages and that he didn't get the entirety of his employment duration that he was expecting. So he would want damages for essentially 3 years and 3 months.
Right.
Because that's how short it was. And then he would want some type of remedy regarding the house. But just realizing that those are the two focal points of what he missed out on, right? Because the whole agreement for him was $40K a year for 6 years and land. And so he's gotten, what is he really upset about? That, hey, I didn't get to work here for as long as, in my head, I was promised to work here for, and I didn't get the land. So boom, just identifying those two, because you're going to want that to be a theme in your writing. Does that make sense?
Yep, that does.
Perfect. And then Courtney, let me ask you, why is Della upset and what does Della want?
Della, well, she's upset at anything really, but probably that she's being sued by Peter, but she would want to get out of the contract, stating probably that those terms weren't written.
Perfect. Awesome, right? Like sometimes a person doesn't have a reason to be upset. So here, Della's the bad faith actor. There's not really a classic sense of like a suit and countersuit situation here for, Della to have any kind of grounds to sue on. So yeah, Della doesn't have really much reason to be upset. And she just simply wants the court to find that either no contract was formed, or if it was, it's not enforceable, right? And then, the third you could say is that if it is formed and enforceable, it doesn't include the terms of the land or the 6-year duration, because those are the two things that are the focal point of Peter's case. So even something like that is good to, again, before you start writing, realize that there's nothing that really Della is upset about. There's no claims for Della really to kind of maybe mention here, right? We can kind of rule that out. Really, Della's whole focal point will just be on the validity of the contract and what are the terms, which is something that we're going to already have to do for Peter anyway. So again, this is just kind of like puts everything in perspective before you start writing. And now, again, we're taking our time doing this, and it does take a little bit more time and practice to gain this skill. But what you'll realize is that when it comes time for the bar exam, if you practice this routinely, you'll be able to like go through this whole process of reading, issue spotting, outlining, and asking yourself these questions all within about 15 minutes. Right, that is your end goal. But yeah, really awesome job of doing it together, and you can again see the type of stuff that you're going to be looking for on your own. All right, this next part is really, really important, right? And this is going to be me sharing with you one of the key fundamentals to bar exam study strategy and how to get the most out of doing your practice essays. So Stephanie, what would you say is the like natural next step? If you were doing this practice essay on your own, you just finished reading and issue spotting it, your very next step would be to do what?
After issue spotting it and reading it, I would say start outlining.
And after you finish outline, if you did your reading, your outlining, your issue spotting, right? You've outlined it. The next step would be to do what?
Read the call of the question again.
Okay. And then what?
And then I would start drafting, I guess, my essay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the step that most people will take, is then they start writing. Now, the way I tell all of my students to do both MBEs and practice essays is that you want to be using the sample answers and the material by your side, because we're not here to test ourselves just yet. We're here to learn and to practice. And now what happens when students do it in the way that you just said, Stephanie, a lot of times you'll then type up this whole essay or answer, and then you'll come to realize at the end of doing it that you talked about things that you didn't need to talk about, and or you missed things that were important and you did need to talk about. And you kind of missed then that opportunity to actually get the muscle memory and the practice of writing it out. So what I actually want you guys to do after you finish doing this phase in the practice phase is to actually isolate your issue spotting skill and compare your outline to some issue checklist or sample answer. Again, whatever program you're using, the resources vary, but at the very least, you can use the sample answer. And what you're going to do then is kind of glance through that and make sure you are on the right track. And then this could be a 5-minute, exercise or moment of pausing to do this, because you could have been right on the money. Or this could take 30 minutes because you were really far off. And before you even get to practicing your writing, you need to make sense of why certain things were triggered and why other things were not triggered, right? And make sure you're on the same page. Does that make sense, Stephanie?
Yes, it does. Sorry, I'm actually leaving out now.
Okay, good. You have to go to class. All right. We'll see you for the next one. Thank you for participating.
Yes, thank you so much. And actually, how do we get to information for the next session?
If you sign in, we have all your information, and we'll be sure to send you everything you need to know moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much, DeAndre. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Yeah, we'll have you. We'll make sure that you're on our list.
Yes, this was amazing. I love it. I might switch from Barbary.
There we go.
Love it. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Thanks for coming, Stephanie.
Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and pick back up with it. So what we were saying was that, right, you want to do this step to isolate your issue spotting exercise and skill so that you're not writing on the wrong issues. All right, so I'm gonna share screen with you all on the issue checklist. So you guys can see what issues are on there, and I'll take any quick questions if you have any on what was actually triggered here. in the way that, if I wasn't here, you would do on your own. But since I am here, if you guys had any questions on like how it was organized, what was raised, now's a good time to spitball that with me. So taking a look at that, Courtney, does that seem aligned with like how you were doing yours, or does anything pop out as a surprise?
No, it seems aligned with what I was doing.
Perfect. So also one thing to do in your issue spotting exercise and doing this step is not just did I catch all of the issues, but also did I organize it in a similar manner? Because organization is also key. So some students may have just had one big offer heading and discussed all the offer issues within one heading and then didn't notice, well, wow, here it was broken down by like chronological fact and whether each step was an offer. Was the ad an offer? Was the post-interview offer an offer? And right, and then it broke down each step. And so like, again, you want to pay attention to even the style of headings that breaks down the discussion. Okay, so that's the issue checklist. Now, after that, we would get into the actual analysis. So this is going to be the last portion of our like tip for the day. And what I'm going to share with you all is our legally fit essay writing formula. Now, the reason why I created this is that when I was in your shoes, soon to be your shoes, studying for the bar exam, again, I needed to come up with a new system, right? I can't use just necessarily what I used in law school. And I came up with this formula for my analysis that ensured that I got the points. And as we've all heard, right, and it stays true on the bar exam, the analysis is where your points are. Sure, you get points for the rule, for the issue, etc. But the analysis is where a lot of students differentiate themselves. A lacking analysis is where you find the student where they're saying, hey, I thought I did really well on that essay. I spotted all the issues. I came to the right conclusions that we're talking about in this little, study group where, as we're discussing it, I came up with all those correct conclusions, but I still didn't pass that essay. And it's because the meat wasn't there. You didn't actually thoroughly analyze. All right. And so what I've created is a formula for keeping students in the bumper lanes of what's required of them for each analysis and nothing more. So I'm going to illustrate that, but we're going to go through the steps of getting to that point. So what I'm going to do here is share screen. All right. And then we have this essay worksheet. All right. So what I want you all to do is analyze the first discussion, which is going to be manifestation of intent to enter into an agreement. What we're doing here is analyzing whether Della's post-interview offer was an offer, okay? And within offer, the first element is manifestation of intent to enter into the agreement. We have the rule right there for us. And so I want you all to like type out your analysis and submit it in the chat. And then I'm going to select one and critique it and then provide the formula. I'm going to provide the essay to you all in the chat if you need to, which I recommend, to refer back to the facts to assist you with your analysis. Send that. All right. So the essay is in the chat. You can pull that up in split screen so you can refer back. And then everybody go ahead as quickly as you can. Type in the analysis in the chat, submit it, and then I'll critique. Okay. All right, we got the response from Courtney. So Courtney, let's go ahead and see how we have here. What we have here. I'm going to copy that into our analysis. Oh, I actually have to share a different document because that's a PDF. So let me share this Word document version. Document 18. There we go. Okay. And there's Courtney's analysis. Courtney, if you were to give yourself a grade on this analysis, what would you give yourself?
Maybe, well, I know the essays are graded 1 to 6, so on that scale, maybe a 2.
Okay, give yourself a 2. All right, let's do it in the realm, because that can even be arbitrary in the realm of A, B, C, D. In that scale, what would you give yourself?
Since this is like my first time writing one like this for like a bar exam essay, I would say maybe a C minus.
Okay, C minus. All right, let's see. Based off of how it starts, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a tough grader. I think it's a little higher than that. Let's see. Here, Della offered Peter a job with the options of either a $50,000 salary or a $40,000 salary with the conveyance of a parcel of land worth $50,000. Della's providing Peter with options of a salary and a job offer shows that she intended to enter into an agreement regarding Peter's employment as a dental hygienist. I mean, Courtney, I think you might be in A minus, like B plus, A minus, and maybe even just A range. There is obviously the arbitrary nature of essay grading, and that's like, the part that is just so crazy about grading for this exam. But this is honestly great. And let me highlight all the things that you're doing well. Number one, what a lot of us do not do is grab the necessary facts, right? So I want you to grab the facts like verbatim, almost like you're grabbing the materials necessary for what you're needing to do. It's like go and grab the facts that apply to this situation and bring them in. And you have that here. You didn't summarize the facts, you didn't necessarily like put them in your own unique wording. Like you really grabbed it and showed me like these are the facts. The other thing that we have to do is kind of like spell out and articulate things that will come off relatively simple, and we'll need to then like actually articulate them. And that can be challenging at times. And you kind of proved that here and accomplished that with Della's providing Peter with options of a salary and a job offer shows that she intended, right? And so like how we're getting there. So awesome job, Courtney. Great start. What I'm going to provide and what you've just given me is only a almost a small modification, but it's going to give you now something that you can use, Courtney, and everybody else to consistently make sure you're analyzing with this like efficiency. All right. So I'm going to type into the chat my legally fit, or not in the chat, I'm gonna put it on this document, my legally fit formula. All right. So here it is. Here, plaintiff or defendant is going to argue. This part right here is optional, or I'm sorry, the who's gonna argue it, but I just do this most of the time because it's good to get situated with who is standing on the side of each of these arguments. But you don't always have to have this. But again, I like to get into the habit and have that be my default. So Courtney, who's going to be arguing that there is a manifestation of intent?
Peter.
Exactly. So it would be here, Peter is going to argue. And then it's including the operative part of the rule. Now that's where I would say this keeps it from being an A plus, maybe even a solid A. Maybe I'll give you more of a B plus or A minus upon this aspect of it not being included, right? And then again, just comes down to your grader. But for me, I want to see that you understand what is the actual part of the rule that you're needing to analyze. So looking up at your rule, Courtney, what is the operative part of the rule? And in other words, it's what is actually required for this rule to be met. That's what operative part of the rule means.
That a reasonable person would think that an offer was made.
Exactly. Did you include that in your language of your analysis?
No.
Exactly. And it's so easy to not do that, Courtney, because we start analyzing our idea of the rule that may be close to the actual rule, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to actually analyze the rule. And so the way that now this all starts is that you're getting to the meat of that, and you're going to say here, Peter is going to argue that what would come next?
That Della, no, that a reasonable person would think that Della made an offer to him when she gave him the job offer and the options of salary.
Exactly. And then, pause there for a second on what the other part was, but just that here, Peter's going to argue that a reasonable person would think an offer was made by Della. And then, as you see then in our formula, the magic word because, and then it says state facts. And then this is where you go and you just grab verbatim facts that are then going to support your discussion here. And then afterwards, you do a statement of thought if necessary. And here again, you can have a statement of thought to help bridge that all together. So I'm going to bring this up so we can see all of it side by side and compare. So why don't you go ahead and read that analysis for us, Courtney?
Here, Peter will argue that a reasonable person would think an offer was made because, per the facts, after an interview, Della offered Peter the job. A reasonable person would think that a post-interview offer from an employer who is looking to hire is in fact an offer. Moreover, Della included details of compensation in the offer. She offered two options for him to accept. One, $50K per year, or two, $40K per year, and a parcel of land if he agreed to work for 3 years. All of this would be considered a promise or commitment by Della.
There we go. What would you personally give that as a grade?
A+.
There we go, A+. And so just like look to see how we use this formula to just structure that in there, and how it just feels like full, complete, and logical. And now you can apply this literally for like 90% of the analysis that you do. We have here, and then we have Peter will argue, and then we have operative part of the rule, which is a reason person would think an offer was made because, and then state facts. It says after an interview, Della offered Peter the job. Like that's the verbatim fact that I'm like starting with, and I'm including other facts later on, but like this is the main fact that I'm starting. It's saying after an interview, the facts state that Della offered Peter the job. Like that's the number one fact to use here. And then what we have here is a statement of thought. You don't always need a statement of thought. Sometimes it's just like, it's pretty black and white and it's clear and it's time to move on so I can get on to bigger issues. But a statement of thought would be nice here. And then that's what this is. A reasonable person would think that a post-interview offer from an employer, is in fact an offer, right? So you're just, again, that extra sentence to make it make sense, that you can't just assume the grader knows, right? Because it is seemingly like, common sense, but you still have to spell it out. And then there was an additional fact. And so again, not trying to analyze that all at once, I just add that at the end and, add it on with the moreover, and then include some more facts that agree, that support my argument. And then the other thing that we didn't do, Courtney, in your analysis is that this was the operative part of the rule, right here. But then you have some rule add-on that tells you that this is typically shown by, a promise, undertaking, or commitment. This is, again, language that why not use in your analysis? So then what we just do here is find a way to incorporate some of that additional add-on language to our rule, right? Just to further support our analysis. Is that all clear, Courtney?
Yes.
Perfect. So again, I want for you to give yourself definitely a little bit more credit than you're giving yourself, and that was a really strong start. But then at the same time, we always want to look to see the areas for improvement, and I don't think you're far off from it. Use that structure, and again, the big takeaway is make sure, and this is like for almost every student I come across, use the operative part of the rule. A lot of times, students will argue the heading, right? Here you put, Della offered Peter, right? You just kind of like talked about why it's an offer. So you're just kind of arguing the concept, but get into what is in front of you that you're actually focusing on. And under this discussion, you're focusing on whether a reasonable person would think, and then you get into that. And I think if you would have put that, I think that would have adjusted your facts that you would have brought, and you might have then highlighted this fact, because that is what is contributing to a reasonable person thinking an offer was made. All right. The last thing I want to say on this particular analysis, and in general when doing practice essays, is that you want to catalog the nice arguments that you see during practice. So much of being a strong essay writer is remembering the other great arguments that you have made or seen before. So you're not kind of being novel in every particular scenario, right, on the bar. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen something like this before, and this is kind of how I approached it last time. So make sure you study in a distraction-free, intentional way where you're like really dissecting this, like, oh, that was a good argument. Let me take a second to like store that in my brain and then go from there. All right, so let's do one more analysis, and let's go ahead and do definite and certain terms. And let's see again if we can now use our formula to be on the money together with how this comes out. So everybody go ahead and analyze the definite and certain terms rule using this formula right here. I'll bring this down a little bit closer to it now. And then once you finish your analysis, please type it in the chat. Okay. This should be a quicker analysis. So let's start to tidy it up and submit. Are you typing this one out, Courtney?
Yes.
Okay. For time purposes, I want to get everybody or get you guys out of here by 8. Let's just see what you have, and then obviously I'll know it's not complete, and I'll just critique from what you have. All right, thank you, Courtney. Let's go ahead and plug that in. All right, here PETA is going to argue that the offer had definite and certain terms and that the agreement can be determined and enforced because Della offered him the job with the options of either blah, 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 50K, blah, 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 right? And you gave the options, right? So overall, pretty good. And we're on the right track, right? So here, this is a good analysis to kind of show you a small variance, right? Compared to the first one. One, here, sometimes the rule doesn't necessarily provide a very clear operative part of the rule. It's rare, but it does happen. And so here it just literally says that it has to be definite and certain to the extent that it can be determined and enforced, which is kind of gray and vague. So really here it's like, it's just saying there has to be enough definite and certain terms. That kind of is the heading. So do realize that again, like 10% of your rules, you are right, just analyzing the heading. But again, that's just the 10%. 90% of the time, you do have an operative part of the rule. So good here, you didn't like get too stumped by that and you included the right language for your rule portion. Also, something that is different here is that there is no statement of thought if necessary. You don't really need anything to kind of bridge this together. So this is a good example of just being able to bring in the necessary facts, hit your period, and move on. So I put up mine as a comparison. Let me change that to here. Here, PETA will argue that there was definite in certain terms to the extent that agreement can be determined and enforced because the offer included the options for compensation listed above in the manifestation discussion and the job position. Further, assuming Della doesn't own numerous parcels of land, the parcel mentioned would be easily identifiable. All right, so again, it's always important to take notes of things that you did well and things that you missed. So like in this type of scenario, Courtney, you would mention like, okay, to myself, note to self, I forgot to like indefinite in certain terms, talk about the fact that the land, was included and, assuming there's no like numerous parcels, we could be able to identify that. Here we not only mention the compensation package, but why not include what the compensation package is for? So you left out the fact that there was a job position. So overall, you did a pretty good job. But again, just going to show how many facts that we can use. And for a lot of us, getting better with our legal writing is being as thorough as possible with all the relevant facts without going overboard and spending too much time in writing a thesis paper. So it is finding that sweet spot. But a lot of us lend more to the side of not including enough facts. And so stuff like this is a good example of like, all right, here's how much I do have to include. All right, so we'll stop there on the analysis. But again, I think that was a really good mini lesson on the introduction of this essay writing formula. And again, how like it could literally change your, your life in the sense of like how to write and, how to write more quickly and efficiently. And what I will share with you, I'll stop sharing for a second. What I will share with you is that using this formula and getting used to it in your daily practice of doing essays, it will be more time consuming. But if you do it consistently and you get into the habit of doing it, it ultimately is a time saver because it actually speeds up your transition into the analysis because you know exactly how you're going to start, you know what to do, and you're just literally filling in the pieces. And so it's like anything else in life, right? To like improve your, skills in a sport, it takes you more time to like practice the fundamentals very slowly. And then once you have those down, now you're moving faster and better than everybody else. So keep that concept of this of being fundamental growing. And if you stick with the habit, you actually improve your timing in the future. All right. So with that said, we'll wrap up that essay portion. Before I do my end of the class announcements, do we have any questions on what we covered, right? Anything specifically regarding the essay stuff or anything in general? Courtney, you got anything for me?
No.
Okay. Meta, how about you? Any questions?
I'm actually still looking at different markup companies, so I'm curious, like, do you guys have different packages, or like if I'm not doing a live or one-on-one class, what kind of materials do you have to kind of like walk us through in the same way that you just did?
Yeah, definitely. So we have 3 tiers of what we offer in Legally Fit Bar Prep. The first option is what you mentioned, which is just all of the materials. You get the recordings that you need to like pretty much self-study through the program. And Monique, that program starts at what price? Do you have that off the top of your head?
Yes, I believe it's 2,200.
Okay, so it's 2,200 for the self-study program. And then the middle tier, which is what most of our students do, is you get everything from the self-study, but then we have live workshops that meet ever so often throughout the week. It kind of ranges in each bar prep, but you can expect to have some type of like live class anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week. And then that way you get just again that live component, that accountability. And in that program, we have some additional perks like obviously essay grading. We have office hours, which is a pretty unique perk where you get to have a time where you can come on Zoom and get specific questions asked and answered, which otherwise can be difficult to do in other traditional programs. And a bunch of other like features, but it's a little bit more of a supportive and live component to that middle tier. And then that price, Monique, is,
That one is 3,950.
and that one's 39.50. And then the last tier that we offer is going to be the live component, right? That entire middle component. And then you're going to add on to that with private coaching. And students can work with a private tutor or private coach either once a week, twice a week, or irregularly if they just want to do individual sessions. But if you want to sign up for like routine personal coaching, you can do that option as well. So yeah, those are the 3 tiers. Was that clear? Meta?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Can I ask you, like, what in specifics are you looking for? As I mentioned earlier, everybody wants to like kind of know what their learning style is, or like what a good bar prep company, looks like for them.
Yeah, for Themis, like I know they do the out not the what is it like they have the schedule that they build for you and say like you forget to do like 2 of the sessions and they'll like kind of like readjust. So like I do like that kind of stuff and I look for companies that kind of have like that schedule built in to help you with your timing.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and then yeah, that's definitely something that we offer as well, which is a schedule from the beginning, from day one, literally to the day in, and also within each day, very specific on what to accomplish in each day. Where that can vary from program to program. Sometimes it's a little bit more like you're figuring it out on your own. But yeah, it sounds like Themis offers that, and that's definitely something that we offer as well, which is like clarity with what exactly your big picture schedule will be, but also even your day to day. But yeah, if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us. But yeah, we'd definitely love to have you for bar prep.
Or she can also join us for early bar prep too, D.
Oh yeah, so I'll get into the announcements right now and let you guys know about what we're doing right now for early bar prep if that's something that you guys are interested in. But first off, I want to again thank you guys for investing in yourself, right? Just at the very least, again, I always have admiration and appreciation for students who are investing in their success. They're not just like, saying I'm stressed out about the bar exam. They're not just saying I'm anxious about the bar exam and not doing anything about it. You guys are taking steps. And again, make sure you feel those steps that you're taking. So again, thanks to Sarah and BWL for hosting this along with Langston to offer this. And so, yeah, pat yourself on the back.